Hello, everybody. We're so excited to speak to you today and to discuss depression, anxiety, and stress. It's the number one health problem in the world today. And more women than men will suffer from depression, and most people just suffer in silence. The book that we're referring to is written by doctors Merneth and Meyer, and it's called Happiness is Your Choice and How to Win Over Depression. It's a brilliant book. I'd recommend it to anyone because it's an easy read, but it really helps you to sort out these issues. They say that most cases of depression are caused by repressed anger and bitterness. When we hold on to grudges against ourselves, someone else, and sometimes even God. The symptoms of depression are often just feeling sad, negative, helpless, hopeless, unhappy generally, pessimistic, and guilty, and sleeplessness as well. Some people in the Bible that showed symptoms of depression are Job after the death of his whole family and his children. Elijah had an amazing victory, but then when Jezebel went after him, he had to flee for his life. And he lay down in the ground after running far and said, God, just kill me. I want to die too. David also suffered with depression because he committed adultery with Bathsheba, and also he plotted and got her husband murdered in battle. So he, because of his secret sin, also battled with depression. So these doctors say depression is often a result of our own irresponsible behavior and lack of education. We suffer because we don't take responsibility for our own anger, sin, and guilt. Sleep is so important to our well-being, and we need to make sure that we're getting sleep. And I know that when people are feeling depressed, often sleep is the first thing to go. We all have stories of hardship, trials, and difficulties, but we want to focus today on how do we overcome them. So we have got a couple of people that we're going to ask to just share their little stories and to share the things that help them to overcome today. So thank you for joining us, and let's share together.
Hi, my name is Brenda Muthelo, and today I will be taking you through my story, sharing on how I went through sexual abuse and also rejection, and how it led me into going in through anxiety, stress, and almost dipping into acute depression. But what is most important today is that I want to share my story from a point of victory, because there are some things that I did which helped me to overcome the stress, the anxiety, and also the shame that comes with the abuse. So it was until COVID when I then realized that I've been living in shame. I then realized that I have been myself. I was sickly. I was also anxious most of the time. I was impossible to live with. Family members that were very close to me can attest to this, because it was really difficult for me to continue, because during COVID time and when we experienced the hard lockdown, my life was disrupted. It was disrupted in such a way that my social life was no longer what it used to be. I then realized that I went through childhood rape, I went through midlife rape, I went through adult rape, and also rejection from a family member that I love so much dearly, where I was longing for their love, I was longing for their validation, I was longing for their acceptance. And only during COVID it hit me that I've been struggling with this. But at that time, I had two choices to make. One was I continue living the way I was living and just embracing the anxieties and the stress that it was bringing or posing onto my life, Or two, it was, I choose to see God for who He is and for who He sees me as His child. I then went through a mind shift, and I saw God as my helper. I saw God as from a point of victory and from a point of healing. This helped me a lot because I started gravitating towards a journey where I was really just getting myself closer to God and understanding why, as a child of God, I would have to go through this, and what are some of the lessons that I had to learn through this entire journey. It helped me a lot because I looked at Him as the Lord, my helper, where my help comes from, and also the Lord, my healer, who says, I do not only heal your physical, but I also heal your emotional, your mental, and I also want you to be in good well-being. So you might be thinking, I'm sharing all of this, but what are some of the practical things that I did? I sought out help. I went to a professional helper, a therapist. I spoke to a professional therapist, but what I liked the most about that is that she was Christian. So our discussion was coming from a point of based on the word and grounded in the word. And there are three things that she taught me. She said, you need to know what are your triggers. You need to know what are your distractors. And also you need to start loving yourself without compromise. And lastly, she said, forgive, because forgiveness is not for the other person, but it's for you. It's most importantly for you who has been wronged. And I did that, and I also went back home and I started practicing daily things that helped me to really started walking into the victory and the healing that I spoke about earlier on. I used my distractors, and some of them are, I spent enough time into worship, I spent enough time into praise, I spent enough time with people that love me and people that embrace me for who I am. I also just, dedicated enough time to looking after myself. And now I'm very intentional about how I look. I went to the gym and I started eating a little bit more healthier. And I also just spent enough time reading the word and just sorting God, because He promises me that those who seek me will find me when they seek me with their whole heart. So I wholeheartedly dedicated the time to find Him in His word and find my healing. And I understood that it's a process. It's not a day thing. It's going to take me time. But with God on my side, it's possible. And I can come out victorious and be that child of God who will be a testimony one day. Thank you so much for listening to my story.